Alright, so back into Photoshop. I've imported the Photoshop document I made in Illustrator. I have all the layers over here. They've been conveniently put into folders. And as I mentioned, there's actually groups that assign a layer to different objects that make up that layer. Okay, I'm going to need to keep the base layer shown at all times, as I talked about before. But what I realized after bringing this in is I actually can have this block not showing with the base. So especially if you're having other things animate in a different way, you might want to just go ahead and put that on, start it off on layer 1. The great thing is, since Photoshop has given me the option to hide this group, I can go over to the layers and just turn off visibility for that one object, which is really nice. So the name of animation is now Timeline. Still under Window, it's just called Timeline. I guess they did it to fit more with Flash and some of the other Adobe kind of video editing products. When you open it up, it'll show here at the bottom, and you may be given this kind of timeline where it's more like After Effects or Flash. You see the entire timeline, and you can pick specific times where the animation happens. You can do it that way if that's what you're comfortable with. I'm actually going to talk about using frames instead, just because the way the layers are set up and everything is just how I prefer to do it. So to change this over to frames, there's a button down here with 3 little squares. You click that and you get a timeline with a frame that shows what's currently on your screen. So right now all I have is the base, so that's what shows up here in the timeline. So this is my very first frame. So things I can do before building up additional frames. You'll get a time here. That is the amount of time that frame is going to be up on the screen. So you probably don't want it up for 5 seconds before it changes. 5 seconds may seem short, but when it comes to animation, it's actually a really long time. So I'm going to put this down to 0.2, and I can always go back and adjust it later. You do want to change it with the first one though, if you know you want it to be a certain amount of time, just because as you make new layers, it's going to keep the time that you have on the one before it. So this is going to be my first one. I do want the animation to start with my blocks shown, so I can go and show the first layer, so I have all 3 blocks in their first animation frame. So that's that. Then what I'm going to do is make a new frame. There's a button down here. Just looks like a new layer button. So I click on that, and it duplicates the selected frame before it. Obviously, I don't want it to be exactly the same as the frame before it, so what I'm going to do is turn off the first layer and then turn on the second one, and I'm just going to continue on with that until I get all of my frames. So once again, new layer, I'm going to turn off 2, turn on 3, new layer, turn off 3, turn on 4, new layer, turn off 4, turn on 5. So that's pretty much it. If I want to, I can just play this and see how my animation will work. This is kind of the base of animation in this respect. If you want it to loop, there's a drop-down menu here, and you can choose 3 times, you can choose forever, you can choose other, and enter a specific amount of time that you want it to repeat. So let's say I want it to repeat forever. So now when I click play, it goes right back to the beginning. Now what if I want it to do the same animations but in reverse? It's the same thing, except I just go backwards in terms of the layers I turn on and off. So this one, I'm going to go make a new layer, turn off 5, turn on 4, new layer, turn off 4, turn on 3, new layer, or new frame, sorry, turn off 3, turn on 2. And then the last one is just going to go to 1, so I don't need to have another one with the first layer shown. So just to check and make sure it's going to do what I want to do, I can preview it with play down here. And now it moves up and down. What if you want to have some kind of transition between all of these? There is something called a tween, which if anybody is familiar with Flash, kind of comes from that program. What you can do is select 2 or more frames that you want to have a transition between, and click this button where it looks like a circle is disintegrating, and you can say tween with selection. The amount of frames to add means the amount of frames it adds to make the transition more smooth, or just adding more to it so it doesn't happen as quickly. So I'm just going to do 1. And then you can see it adds this kind of halfway point between those 2. So if I wanted to, I could do that with all of these. Of course, you could also set up your own tweens in Illustrator by changing opacities. You can make things look like they're glowing by using the blur tool or outer glow effects. Alright, and then I'm going to make a tween between the first one and the last one. Hold down Option, so I just select those 2, hopefully. Control. Alright, there we go. And then I'm going to make a tween for that one. So now I can run the animation, and it's got more frames to it, so it's a little bit slower. Of course, you could slow down the time, or speed up the time if you wanted it to move faster. But let's say this is what I want. Now what I need to do is export this or save it out as a GIF file. I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to select the first frame and hold down Shift and go to the last frame. And you'd probably also want to save the Photoshop file before you do this too. But I'm going to go to Save for Web, and I want to choose a GIF file. That's the kind of file that's going to let me animate this. I can preview what's going to happen by pressing the play button here in the lower right corner. So I can see what it's doing there. You can also see how large your file is going to be. So right here it's almost 250K. I can change the download speed, and that in turn changes the file size. So if you are finding your file is too big, maybe you slow things down and that changes the file size. Other things you can look at, the colors will also affect how large your file is. So if I have it at 32 colors, my file size goes down by about 25. If I do 8, it's more at 200. You'll also, what you'll notice is that the edges of my vector objects are more pixelated, and that's because when I have more colors, it's putting in colors to make the transition between two very different colors more smooth. This isn't working in vectors anymore. Since it's working in pixels, if you eliminate the colors, then there's less that the screen can do to make it look nice and pretty. But I'm going to leave it at a lot of colors, and you can choose looping again over here, how you want it to play, and then click Save. Then put it somewhere. And then let's go find the file. So now I have my animated GIF file. And what you should be able to do is go to a web browser and put it into the web browser, and it'll work there as well. So you could put this onto your website if you want it to be shown with your portfolio pieces or whatever. So it's pretty neat. At least I think so. Does anybody have any questions? No?